Throughout human history, many wealthy individuals have existed, with Mansa Musa being one of the most prominent examples. In the first half of the 1300s, Mansa Musa, the leader of the Mali Empire in Africa, had a personal fortune of about $400 billion by today's calculations. Throughout history, many wealthy people have come and gone, from Genghis Khan to Akbar Shah, and from Julius Caesar to Alan Rufus, an English nobleman from the 1040s. The Industrial Revolution established a new world, culturally, socially, and economically, and as a result, wealth changed hands. The people I just mentioned were in the leadership seat of their country or region, and they had gathered all the wealth of the places they ruled in their hands. But the post-industrial era was a period of knowledge, skill, and entrepreneurship. A person starting from scratch could earn great fortunes with their knowledge, skills, and entrepreneurial courage. Admittedly, considering the current events we face, what I mentioned doesn't seem very convincing. Moreover, the fact that many wealthy people don't want to talk about the early days of their fortunes makes all of us suspicious about how things really work. Let's return to our topic. John D. Rockefeller, founder of the Rockefeller family, was the first billionaire of the post-industrial revolution era, which extends to the present day. The dynasty he established grew so large that it was claimed that the United States was actually governed by a few families, including Rockefeller. Of course, these have always been conspiracy theories. In this video by Kablosus Durgi, we will look at some lesser-known and rather dark details about the life of John D. Rockefeller. Remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video.
John D. Rockefeller was always pursuing entrepreneurship since his childhood. He did many ordinary jobs, including raising turkeys and doing house and garden work for his neighbors. But the most important thing for him was the first day he entered real business life. At the age of just 16, he left school and started working as an accounting assistant at a company called Hewitt & Tuttle, which was a brokerage firm in the transportation sector in Cleveland. John D. Rockefeller was earning about 50 cents a day in this job, and even for that time, this was very little money. He started taking on additional jobs to earn more money. He also frequently asked his managers at the Hewitt & Tuttle company for a raise, but all his requests were rejected. Young John, who didn't want to spend the rest of his life working for someone else for just 50 cents a day, also started looking for ways to earn more. 18. After turning 18 with his intense efforts, he found a bank that could give him a loan for his project and started selling food products. During the American Civil War, he made his first fortune by selling meat, grain, and hay to the federal government. John D. Rockefeller never worked for anyone else again after his job at Hewitt & Tuttle. At his first job, he annually celebrated his work anniversary on September the 26th, the day he started there. He even said that this day was more important than his birthday. He thought that if he hadn't been accepted for this job, his life would have taken a very different direction. John D. Rockefeller was a patient with alopecia, which is commonly known as ringworm among the public. Consequently, all the hair on his head, face, and body fell out completely, leaving him entirely hairless. After he contracted the disease and his hair fell out completely, he started wearing a wig. But to give the impression that his hair was growing, he had many wigs of varying lengths. He used his wigs in a cycle, wearing them from short to long at certain intervals, then starting over each time.
John D. Rockefeller, born in 1839, lived for 97 years until his death in 1937. In his lifetime, he witnessed 19 American presidents from Martin Van Buren to Franklin Roosevelt. Due to modern medicine and hygiene, life expectancy has risen, making it unsurprising to see people in their 90s today. In those times, living 97 years was remarkably long, because in those times, the average life expectancy for men in the United States was 46 years. In fact, John D. Rockefeller lived so long that his insurance policy had expired.
If we're going to talk about the darkest things in John D. Rockefeller's life, his father comes first. Because the modern world's first billionaire worked very hard to hide his father's past. He said that one of the most important memories from his childhood was watching his father count money in front of him. He also said that his father refused to keep his money in the bank and kept it on himself or hid it at home. He also added that his father never carried less than $1,000 with him, and that this made him feel safe, thinking that if something happened to him, this money would be enough. Father William Rockefeller's ways of making money were quite surprising. Sometimes he would pretend to be a deaf and blind street vendor, making people pity him and buy things from him. At times he would pose as a doctor to sell patented medicines. Accused of horse theft and even rape, William Rockefeller was a truly unstable father figure. After John D. Rockefeller began to amass his fortune, he tried to hide his father. No one knew where William Rockefeller was. Many legends began to circulate about him. Joseph Pulitzer, whose name is given to one of the world's most prestigious journalism awards today, the Pulitzer, went after William Rockefeller in 1901. He thought that this way, he would increase the sales of his newspaper, the New York World. He offered an $8,000 reward for information on William Rockefeller's whereabouts. When inflation rates are taken into account, the $8,000 from back then is equivalent to about $240,000 today. Pulitzer also sent his own reporters all over the country to find Old Man Rockefeller, but the reporters came back empty-handed. 7 years later, in 1908, one of Pulitzer's reporters finally tracked down William Rockefeller, but the reporter was too late because William Rockefeller had died 6 months earlier. It was also claimed that William Rockefeller was polygamous. It was alleged that William Rockefeller, John Dean's grandfather, had extramarital affairs with his mistress and maid in addition to his wife, Eliza, and at one point they were all living under the same roof. The accusations of fraud, theft, and rape made against his father, William Rockefeller, were contrary to the thrifty and wholesome image that John D. Rockefeller had carefully built over the years. Also, that was a time when conservatism was widespread, and his father's past could have put pressure on him. One of the claims made about William Rockefeller is that his sons hid him for 25 years without seeing him and only sent him money. For ordinary people like us to access the best products and services at the best prices, companies need to be in competition with each other. A company that has a monopoly on a product has no motivation to improve the quality of the product or to bring its price to a competitive level. Maybe sometimes it's ruthless, but as humanity, we're all in a competition to reach something better anyway. But in John D. Rockefeller's life, competition was one of the things he hated the most. He didn't like competition at all and defined it as a sin. In most of the decisions he made in his business life, there are traces of his efforts to eliminate companies and individuals who would be his rivals. For this reason, most people described him as a greedy monster, and this cartoon you see was often used to represent him. John D. Rockefeller had a tactic he used to eliminate his rivals. Let's say there's a gas station at a crossroads. Other companies who saw good potential here also came and opened gas stations on the other corners. John D. Rockefeller takes one of the corners and immediately starts by lowering the prices. If necessary, he even takes a loss himself, but he makes sure the other gas stations hit rock bottom financially. He then purchases the other 3 gas stations and increases the prices as desired. Many lawsuits were filed against John D. Rockefeller because of his strategies that killed competition. These lawsuits went on for many years. In 1911, the American court ruled that Rockefeller's company, Standard Oil, had violated antitrust laws. The antitrust law is a law that prohibits agreements that are against competition and unilateral actions that monopolize or attempt to monopolize the relevant market. As a result of the decision that Standard Oil had violated these laws, the court ordered the company to be broken up. The company was split into 34 distinct entities, including well-known firms like ExxonMobil, Conoco, Chevron, and Amoco. However, this sanction resulted in a better outcome for John D. Rockefeller and made him even more profitable. The total value of these 34 companies was greater than the value Standard Oil had on its own. After the decision to break up Standard Oil, the shares of the companies that emerged nearly tripled in the first few years. Thanks to this, John D. Rockefeller acquired a fortune equivalent to almost 2% of the entire United States economy. And this opened the doors for him to become the first billionaire of the modern world in 1916. The main reason for the American Civil War between 1861 and 1865 was that the industrialized northern states wanted the abolition of slavery, while the southern states, whose economy was based on agriculture, opposed this. Because the industrial establishments in the northern states needed free labor, while the farms in the South needed cheap labor. John D. Rockefeller, an industrialist from the North, was apparently someone who opposed slavery. He even wrote an anti-slavery article before dropping out of school. But during the American Civil War, he did not join the Union forces, and he didn't even take up arms. He claimed that he was the breadwinner for his family and received an exemption. This exemption also depended on a certain condition. He was required to hire soldiers to fight in his place. These rules were not unique to John D. Rockefeller. People who had the means could hire soldiers and be exempt from the war. In most of his statements after the war, John D. Rockefeller said that he regretted not fighting. Even though he said this, he made a great financial profit from this war. This profit provided him with the capital needed for the oil business, which would bring him a massive fortune.